All right, once you're at sabertech.net, go to the very top and click Downloads. Then we're going to download the manual. The manual is the very first thing you see here, Golden Harvest v3 manual. And I'm going to show you two parts to look at to keep things simple, but feel free to read through the whole thing if you'd like. I'm going to go down to page 22. And talk about the general settings. So general settings is a text file that you're going to have on your SD card. So if you can access your SD card, put it into a computer, open up your general settings, here's where you're going to set up most of your preferred button setups and other things too. But you're going to need to be able to understand what your general settings text looks like. I'll show you what mine looks like after, but first things first, let's get to your general text. So when you open it, it looks like this. This is just a picture. We're not going to actually do anything to this. But here you have different parameters, I guess. So for instance, one of the first things that you should probably look at is this one right here, button mode. For a 2-button setup, it should read button mode equals 2. So you should change that 4 to a 2 so that you're on a 2-button setup. Button mode 4 is a 1-button setup. But again, once you open up this text, all you do is you click the 4, delete it, change it with a 2, then you save that file, save this general text file, and then you put the SD card back in. But there are other parameters that you can change, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The next part, I'm going to go down to page 90 and just show you there's a few other parameters you can change. For instance, like your accent menu, you have 2 options, 0 and 1. Accent battery indicator, you have 2 options, 0 and 1. So that's those things that you would change in your general text. In Saber Editor, you have things that you can change. For instance, like color profile, how you access the different color profiles in Saber Editor. It's either you're twisting it or you're tilting the saber or both, a combination of the two. But kind of things that you can change. You can continue to read through this, but I'm going to go down to the next part, which is your the menus, the options for your 2-button setup. So for instance, here you have blaster block for 2 momentary button setups. So you have 2 options, 0 or 1. I actually have it set on 1. It's kind of a fun thing for the multi-blast mode. But again, you can read through it and see what you prefer. Force push, again, make sure you read for 2 momentary buttons. Here you have 2 options. I like force push equals 0, where I'm just tapping the power. You could hold and swing, but I don't really like that option, especially when they have one that you're just tapping. Because on a 2-button setup, you actually have a little bit more freedom. So I went with force push 0. You have options for lockup, and so I just wanted to show you that. So if you're saying your saber isn't reacting the same way mine is, it's probably because yours is set to a different setting, and it really comes down to what you prefer. And then at the very bottom, if you go to the very bottom, you have, is this it? Right here, page 109, you have navigating using 2 momentary buttons. So here pretty much is going to summarize everything that I'm going to go through and show you how my saber is set up. So you can feel free and come out and print this portion, and then you can have all of your different ways of accessing it, how to use your 2-button setup. All right, next I'm going to show you my general text. So here's the general text straight off of my saber. A few things I wanted to talk about that people should know. Volume's the first one I'm going to point out. Mine's set at 150. I think the default is 100, but Golden Harvest, you can push it up to 400. Other thing, again, button mode 2. This is a 2-button setup, so I needed button mode 2. I did like some gesture controls, so I enabled swing ignition. So swing on, I made it 1. I like twist off, so I made twist retraction equals 1. So here's the first things that you need to see for my setup. My setup, I have blaster 1. That's what I prefer. I have lockup 0. I have force push 0. Accent menu 0, color menu 2, effect menu 2, sound menu 2. If you have a bunch of sound fonts, I had sound font jump 8, so when I tap it, it'll jump 8 sound fonts. If you have a lot, you might want to change that. If you have very little, you can change it to like skip 2 or 3 fonts at a time. Your choice. Volume control 2, edit mode 2, pixel number edit mode 1, ignition speed edit 1, so on and so forth. You can pause this if you are truly interested in those, but these you really don't need to touch either, but they're just more customization if you want. If you think that all of your like lockup and drag are backwards, or volume control, anything that your saber has to be pointed up or pointed down, it's possible that your orientation is set differently. Mine's set at orientation 0 so that it knows what is up and what is down. So again, if yours seems to be upside down for some reason, make sure the orientation is set correctly. The other thing that I do see is this is a Neopixel, so the effect font slot should be 9, 7, 8, or 9 actually. Those are your Neopixel ones. And then the last ones here, you don't really need to change, but again, this is my general text. So now that you see that, now we can get into the saber, and I'll show you how my saber works with these settings. All right, so I'm going to go over the 2-button setup for the Golden Harvest v3. So 2 buttons, you have power and auxiliary, so power and aux. So let's go over just basic controls. So first off, wake up your board. And next you'll tap power and it'll turn it on. If you hold power, it'll turn it off. If you have gesture controls, you can always use those. Swing on, twist off. Other things while your saber is off. So if you have it face down and you hold the auxiliary and let go, it should activate volume.
Volume control activated.
So volume control is nice. Once you activate it, you can turn the hilt so it's completely off because there's no sound, or I can turn it up all the way to the end, and you can use the blade as your like parameters of percentage. So halfway would be like 50%, all the way is 100%.
Volume adjusted.
And then you just tap auxiliary and it'll adjust it. Other things while your saber is off, if it's faced up and you hold power, it'll play your soundtracks. It'll play throughout everything. You can turn on your saber. And then same thing to turn it off, face saber up, hold power, and then it'll turn off your soundtrack. Other things you can do while your saber is off. This is how you'll change sound fonts. So if you have your saber facing up and you hold auxiliary,
Sound menu.
it'll take you to your sound menu where you can cycle through all your sound fonts.
Red.
You can turn
White.
the saber and I'll go through the sound fonts one at a time. If you face the saber down, it will cycle backwards.
Yellow. White. Red. Purple. Green. Blue.
And if you
Green. Purple. Purple. Green. Blue.
if you tap power, it will jump. I have mine set to jump 8 fonts.
Purple. White. Blue.
And then once you want that font, just hold auxiliary. So I stopped on blue, so I'll have my blue blade. The last feature that I have set up for my saber while the saber is off is face down and hold power.
Saber editor.
And then
Select mode.
that's saber editor. The different modes I have are
Color profile.
color profile. Here I can set my color to what I want.
Pixel number.
Pixel number, you can adjust the different length blades.
Ignition speed.
Ignition speed, I can adjust how fast the blade ignites.
Retraction speed.
Retraction speed is where I adjust to see how fast the blade comes back in.
Gesture controls.
Gesture controls here, you can turn them on and off if you like. I have it set in the general text, but you can always override it here.
Save and leave saber editor.
And then save and leave, you hold, and then you'll exit the saber editor. Another feature while your saber is off is going to be the power level, your battery indicator. While the saber is off, you're going to hold power and perform a stab, and then it will tell you your battery life.
Checking power level. 50% left.
So it tells you 50% left. It also shows you by the percentage of the blade that's lit up. Again, this is a feature while your saber is off. Okay, next we'll move on to functions while the saber is on. I'm going to use 2 different fonts because I don't have the all the sound files for these features, but I'll show you as we go. So first off, turn on your saber. If you tap auxiliary, you get blaster defects. And you get 1 blaster each time you hit auxiliary. The blaster mode I set, if you tap auxiliary and then you swing, you'll get blaster defects, like multi-blaster defects. So I tap and then I'll swing. And each time I swing, I get a blaster defect. And to exit, I just wait. And again, I can do that with tapping auxiliary. Another thing with auxiliary is lockup. You can hold auxiliary and then tap. And then right here is my lockup. It does move, so I just moved up the blade. I can move it down the blade. It'll continue to lock up as long as I hold it or leave it until I tap auxiliary, and then it's gone. It'll change to a different sound font.
Sound menu. Yellow. Goodbye to the final.
I needed to go to a different one because I have force effects, so that font didn't have it. But force effects, all you do is tap power. You could put quotes as the force effects. Here we just have force effects and it just makes that noise just by tapping power. Other features with power is going to be stab. Stab is just by thrusting. Melt is going to be hold power and then stab. Right there is your melting. And again, it'll turn off when you tap power. One other feature for the auxiliary button will be melt. So you're going to actually do the same thing as blade lockup, but you're going to face the saber down. So hold the auxiliary, let go, tap auxiliary. And you'll see that it's melting or dragging it across the floor. And it'll stop by tapping auxiliary. Other controls are going to be your menu options. So if you had the accent menu, which I don't because I don't have any accent lights on this saber, but you're going to face the saber down, you're going to hold power, let go, and hold again. And then you'll enter the accent menu. Saber editor is a menu, like I said, if you hold the saber down and just hold power once, and let go.
Saber editor. Select mode.
You'd go into saber editor. Again, if it's face down and you hold it twice, that'll go into the accent menu.
Color profile.
Again, you just tap power to go through everything.
Pixel number. Ignition speed. Retraction speed. Gesture controls.
You hold power for a second to select that. So for instance, gesture controls.
Choose gesture control.
So I've held it, now I'm choosing gesture controls. You can tap to cycle through it, tap power to cycle through.
Stab ignition. Swing ignition. Twist ignition. Twist. Retract. Stab ignition.
Whatever one you choose, you're going to rotate clockwise to turn on, counterclockwise to turn off.
Swing ignition. Twist ignition.
I'll do
Twist retraction.
twist retraction.
On.
So clockwise is on,
Off.
counterclockwise is off.
On.
Once I have that selected, you just hold power and it'll select that menu and bring you back to the saber editor.
Back in saber editor. Select mode.
And again, just tap to cycle through.
Save and leave saber editor.
Once you're done with the saber editor, you can just hold at save and leave, and that'll select that menu. You have another menu, which is your effects and blade styles and stuff. So that is when the saber is on. So turn on the saber. To change your profiles, you're going to hold power and then tap it.
Choose color profile.
And here you can choose your color profiles. Rotate the hilt to select which profile you're on. If you face it down and rotate it, it'll go back. Hold power to select. So that's selecting blade profiles. Another menu option is the blade effects. So hold power, let go, hold power again.
Choose blade effects.
When you're in blade effects, you can rotate the hilt to go through different blade styles.
Classic 2. Classic 3. Classic 4.
When the saber is faced up, you will cycle through it forwards. If the saber is face down,
Classic 3.
you'll go backwards.
Classic 2. Classic 1.
The other thing you can do in this menu
2. Classic 1.
is tap the auxiliary. When you tap the auxiliary, it'll give you another effect over the blade style. And again, facing up cycles forward, facing down cycles backwards. When you find the one you want, again, just hold power, it'll select it and you'll be done. And now we're back to just having the saber on. And those are your menus. And those are your features for your 2-button setup Golden Harvest v3. Thank you for watching. I hope this video helps you figure out how to use a 2-button setup. I do prefer a 2-button setup over the 1-button setup just because you have a little bit more options, but it is nice, and yeah, thanks for watching.